Welcome back to another video lesson. This lesson is 4.2, where we're going to be going over the steps on how to multiply fractions and whole numbers. The next three lessons are going to be in the same foldable. So you've got a green piece of paper with in class. We're actually going to do the same thing with it that we did for estimating. We're not estimating today, we're multiplying. So you're going to take the foldable and just fold it in half, and then you're going to trim this side up so that it'll fit in your notebook. And then, just like before, there are three different lessons that we're going to be dealing with: whole numbers, fractions, and mixed numbers. So we're going to have three columns again, and we're going to cut those doors right up to the title so that we can take the notes on the front and then do the examples on the inside. We are going to do about 3 or 4 examples on the inside of each kind. And so get that ready, and we actually are going to be going back into our notebook where we have page 36. Page 36 was a little green square that you did in the beginning of chapter 2 when we did all of that fraction review. I gave you some notes on multiplying, and we didn't really touch on it too much. And now in chapter 4, that's what we're going to spend most of our first part of our chapter doing. So multiplying fractions is the name of the game. Before we get to the foldable, I just want to do a picture demonstration of what it means when we are multiplying by fractions. And my picture model is going to demonstrate when we have 4 things or 4 wholes, and we decide to take half of them. If I cut this picture in half, how many would be on one half of that side? And so half of 4 is 2. Notice the answer 2 is less than the whole that we started with. That makes sense. If we're cutting it in half, we're going to have less candy bars or pieces of paper than we started with, whatever you want those rectangles to represent. I just wanted to show you the picture model of what happens when we take a whole number and we multiply it by a fraction. Now we're in our foldable. On the front, it has the number 1, and it has fraction and whole number, and then it has a part underneath it. And this is the biggest idea for this lesson. You have to put the whole number over 1. And then you're going to multiply the numerators and multiply the denominators, and then simplify. That's the steps that we're going to do. With word problems, we're going to see some of those in class tomorrow. The biggest thing I want you to remember is that the word of means multiply. And now we're going to do some examples. So my formatting on here, I'm actually going to rewrite this problem because I don't like working with fractions when they're side by side like that. But for formatting, I just had to type it up like that to remind me what our first example was. So on the inside, I'm going to do this first example on the bottom part. We're going to have the whole number 3, and notice I'm going to write that first, and then I'm going to put my 4/5 vertically, and my 3 is in the numerator spot because we want to put this whole number over 1. That's the first step. And then we're going to multiply across. Numerators would be 12, denominator would be 5. Now we can't leave this as an improper fraction. In order to convert back into a mixed number, we have to take this and divide. So I'm going to take the numerator divided by the denominator. 5 times 3 is 15, that's too high. So I'm going to do 5 times 2, and when I subtract, I get a 2. I can stop because I want to write this as a mixed number. I could, if I was doing decimal equivalent put a decimal point here and annex some zeros and keep going. But because we are just needing a mixed number, this 2 is going to be the numerator, this 5 is going to be the denominator, and this 2 is going to be the whole number. So my answer is going to be a 2 and then 2/5. Notice my whole number is larger than my fraction piece. Make sure you're being clear on what is the whole number and what is the numerator and denominator. So that's example 1. You do not have to write this word problem down. We're going to talk about it and then create the problem from it. So a cat spends 2/3 of its life asleep. Notice my emphasis on the word of. If a cat lives to be 15 years old, how many years did it spend asleep? So we go back up to this first sentence, 2/3 of its life. Its life is the other factor, and the of is going to be that multiplication. So here's one factor, 2/3. Its life is the other factor, and in the second sentence we see that the cat has been alive for 15 years. So now our problem is going to be multiplying 2/3 times 15. We're going to put it over 1, and now we're going to multiply across. We have 30 and a 3. If you can do that mentally, that's fine. 30 divided by 3 is 10. And with word problems, you always have to add a unit or a topic. What does that 10 represent in this context of the problem? It represents how many years. And if you are confused with what the unit is, always refer back to the word problem, and the question will give you that unit. How many years is what we're trying to find. That's an example of a word problem. We're going to do a lot more in class tomorrow. I got one more example for us. Our last example is going to be 5/6 of 21. So I have a little bit of room on the top. I'm going to just go underneath and do example 3 there. I'm going to rewrite it so that the 5 and the 6 is vertical. And then I'm going to put my 21 in the numerator and make it an improper fraction by putting it over 1. What's 21 divided by 1? 21. That's why this works, this over 1 trick. So any number divided by 1 is itself. This is just the fraction equivalent of a whole number. So now we're going to need to multiply 5 times 21. Maybe we need to come over here and just scratch it out, and that would be 105. So I'm getting 105 in the numerator and 6 in the denominator. I can't leave this improper fraction like it is, so I'm going to come down here, and the numerator goes on the inside, and the denominator is the divisor. So 6 times what gets me close to 1? I can't do that, so I'm going to move over to the 0 and make this a 10 in my mind. What times 6 is close to 10? I can only do 1, so I'm going to put the 1 above the 0 and subtract and get 4. I'm going to bring down the 5, and I now have 45. What times 6 gets me close to 45? Well, 6 times 7 is 42, and then we have a 3 in the remainder. So now we're going to write this as a mixed number. Remember, the numerator of the fraction piece is the 3. The denominator is the 6, just like it was up here. And then this 17 is the whole number. So when we write this, it's going to be 17 and 3/6. The only caution that we have to make is making sure that this fraction part of the mixed number is in simplest form. Sometimes it'll be easy to figure out like this, maybe we can do it in our head, or other times we're going to have to come over and take that fraction part, divide by a common factor, and get the fraction simplified down. Remember, when you do that though, you have to connect it back to the 17. So it's not just 1/2. You just simplified down the 3/6. So our real answer is going to be 17.5. So be careful when you divide. Sometimes you'll get a fraction that can be simplified more. You can do that, pull it out, and divide by a form of 1, which is a common factor of both numerator and denominator, and you will get that in simplest form. We will practice this all day in class tomorrow, and I look forward to seeing you then. Have a good night.